Okay, good morning, everybody. My name's Priya Goundan. I'm from SAIF, which is the South African Institute of Fundraising. I'm so happy to see so many of you join us this morning. I think it's the topic and Bilal himself that's been the major attraction. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about, I will tell you at the end more about what SAIF is and what it does. But now let me tell you about who and what Bilal is. I happened upon Bilal on LinkedIn, and what a find it was. He's an edtech entrepreneur and the founder of IT Varsity. He runs two other companies as well, CompuKids and Xander, which are two edtech companies that have a total of 1 million downloads from the app stores. He's a software engineer by profession, and he's also an author, keynote speaker, newspaper columnist, strategic business and educational digital transformation advisor. Sure, that's a mouthful. He is an award-winning app developer and a weekly columnist for the Cape Argus, the Star, and the Daily News. He writes about technology, trends, and education. He has a podcast entitled Tech Watch, which covers the latest developments in technology and the social implications. The podcast is available on a number of local and international platforms, and I urge you to connect with Bilal on whatever platform you'd like and watch his podcasts. He's a regular speaker at a number of notable events such as GovTech. He also consults for many educational institutes and businesses on the transformation of the fourth industrial revolution. Bilal's vision is that he believes that education is the key to ending South Africa's crippling youth unemployment problem. His approach is to make learning accessible to all South Africans via e-learning. To this end, he has established IT Varsity, a fully online technology institute accredited by the MICT CETA. IT Varsity aims to prepare students for the highly lucrative and ever-growing global IT services sector. We are so grateful as SAIF, KZN, to have Bilal talk to us today on the rise of machines, which would have sounded like a sci-fi movie title, but is now our new normal and our glaring reality. He's going to unpack for us some of the tech trends, give us foresights into a future world, and most importantly, describe how we can prepare for such an unpredictable dynamic. The big question is, Bilal, how will it affect our lives, our work, our businesses, our projects? So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Bilal. He is the host. I've made him the host already. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Bilal. And over to you.
It's a pleasure, Priya, and thanks. And I'm honored to be speaking here. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to yourself and your colleagues in the fundraising space. As much as technology is changing our world, it's remarkable to what extent it is changing our world. And even in fields that were traditionally not affected by technology, we are seeing technology, taking shape. So I hope I can inspire some of you with what I have to share today. And if you have any questions, please put it out in the chat. And if you have any questions or anything you want to discuss after the talk, then I will share my contact details, my social media presence, and it will be an absolute pleasure to talk to you guys. All right, let me share my screen and we will get started. Priya, can you see my slides?
Yes, it's clear and it's full screen.
Absolutely, thanks a lot. Okay, so to start off with, Priya's already done this intro, so I'm not going to leave it there for too long. As Priya described, this is my vision. My vision is IT Varsity. Yes, it's my business, but it's also my vision for this country. I think South Africa missed out on the first, second, and third industrial revolutions. And now we are presented with this fourth industrial revolution. And I'll describe what this is during my presentation. And I think the main reason we missed it is because our workforce, primarily our youth, were not ready for it. And my vision is to provide our youth, as many youth as possible, with an accredited qualification, along with marketable skills, as well as entrepreneurship skills. Now, what's needed, a lot in this country is people with a go-getter attitude, people with the drive to make a change for themselves. Because I think more than most people, you will understand that giving all the time will only create a generation of people that are entitled. But if we teach people to go out there to make things happen for themselves, then, it will be... Sorry, I'm just letting someone in. Then we will see true change in this country. Give me a second, excuse me. It's a bit breezy here, so my door was open. So my vision is to produce a generation of young people with an entrepreneurial mindset that will enable them to take on their counterparts in all parts of the world. I mean, if you look at the tech industry, it's booming. It's literally booming. And there's a global shortage of technology skills. But we seem to be going in the opposite direction. We have massive youth unemployment. And what's the reason for that? The reason is that, yes, there is a lot of education taking place, but it's not transformational. It's not giving that the technical skills as well as the mindset shift that our youth need. They need to come out of this entitled mindset, of this victim mindset, to the mindset of entrepreneurs, of go-getters, where they will make things happen, not just for themselves, but for their communities also. And well, that's my life's mission, the way, I like to define myself. So this triangle that you're seeing is basically the how. It's how we are going about doing this. And some of you may be interested in this part. We've partnered with a number of nonprofits around the country that have computer centers. And through the computer centers, we're making learning accessible to these learners. Because, I mean, it's one thing providing an online course, but what's the point if learners don't have access to the course? If they don't have computers and they don't have internet, there's absolutely no point to it. So we're busy setting up these little, what I call micro campuses around the country. And we are giving learners from those areas access into those micro campuses where they can learn. And we, where there's a need for bursaries, we go to companies, corporates, NGOs, and we raise bursaries for those learners. So we're giving them a complete solution rather than just a bursary or just an opportunity to learn. Okay, now enough about me and a little bit about some of the problems that NGOs face. And I've been working with a number of NGOs because obviously we, as I mentioned, we partnered with a lot of NGOs, and we worked with them to raise funds, and in doing so, I got to know them. I think this picture perfectly describes, although it's a school scenario, but it also describes your life as an NGO when you're trying to raise funds. You are there. You've got a cause that you believe in, that you can see that there's a need for people to get involved. You're trying to talk to people. You're trying to get the word out, but people are disinterested. They, too busy with their cell phones or whatever other things keep people busy. And your dilemma is, how do you create excitement around what you are doing? How do you share your passion with the world around you? Not just for fundraising, but also for the awareness about it. So I think by end of this presentation, I will have helped you to answer that question. Now, before I get there, I want to set the stage for what I'm about to say. And there's nothing better than to discuss the level of disruption that we are facing in our world right now. it's massive and it's accelerating. And I think the most effective way to do this, to describe to you, rather than giving you lengthy talks, is to describe the level of disruption by means of 3 facts. Let's go. Fact number 1. Did you know the top 10 in-demand jobs this year did not exist 10 years ago? So we're talking about people doing jobs in job descriptions with job titles that didn't exist 10 years ago. Can you imagine the implication of this? This means that every year, newer and newer jobs are coming out. And take a look at what's on the screen here. Look at driverless car engineer. I mean, 10 years ago, who even spoke about driverless cars that drive by themselves, or machine learning engineer? What is a machine learning engineer? It's essentially, the person is essentially a teacher of sorts who teaches a machine things, how to talk, how to understand human language, how to do things. So, I mean, when you look at it and you think about it, it's really fascinating, the kind of world that we are living in now. Fact number 2, 50% of today's jobs will not exist in 10 years' time. So what's happening here? You can see this. There are 2 major shifts that are taking place. One is that new jobs are being created all the time, and old jobs are becoming obsolete. Now, let me give you an example. Self-driving vehicles. When self-driving cars become the norm, what's going to happen to drivers, people whose profession it is to drive? Uber drivers, for example, taxi drivers. In Sweden, they're testing a whole fleet of trucks that are self-driving. So going from one part of the country to the other, picking up and dropping goods without any drivers. That's amazing. So in time, what's going to happen is that the drivers are going to be replaced by self-driving vehicles. But this is not all doom and gloom. Please understand this. It's not my intention to scare anybody, for a simple reason that it's a trend that's been taking place throughout the last century. If you think about it, right? In the old days, and I'm talking about the 1980s if you're old enough, how did we watch movies? We needed a VCR player connected to a TV, and we put in one of those huge clunky cassettes inside, rewind it, and press play. That's how we did things in the old days. Today, you don't need the VCR player, you don't need the TV, you don't need the cassette. You just pick up your phone, you go onto Netflix or YouTube, and you can stream a movie. That's how it's gone. Now think about that industry that employed all of these people that were in the supply chain of the VCR players and the cassettes. There were millions of people employed, all the way from manufacturing through logistics and distribution and sales and after-sales service. And there were also those people that, their job was to copy the movies onto the cassettes. So there was an entire industry employing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. But what happened to that industry? It is totally gone. It's disappeared. I mean, think about this, right? When was the last time that you saw a VCR player or one of those cassettes? I can't remember. It must have been years ago since I saw that. The question is, what happened to all those people? What happened to that entire supply chain? Simple. They moved on to other things. So what's going to happen is, as technology takes certain jobs away, it's going to create more opportunities, and people are going to move into those opportunities. Moving on. Fact number 3. We are going to see more tech innovation in the next decade than we saw in the previous century. Now, this is a tall claim. This is a massive claim that I'm making here, because we're talking about 100 years of innovation and 10 years topping that. How is that even possible? How is a short time period, 1/10 of a century, going to beat an entire century? And not just any century, but the century, the 20th century. The century that we saw the invention of the computers themselves, of internet, of mobile devices, you name it, we can go on and on talking about it. How is this even possible? Now, I'm going to explain that to you using just this one word here, innovation. Now, the reason that the next 10 years is going to take over or is going to give us more innovation can be described using this picture here. Now, in this picture, you're seeing a very frustrated looking man. Now, this man is Lee Sedol. He is the world Go champion. Well, let me be more specific. He is the world human Go champion. Now, you see, the game Go is a very, very simple game to learn, but a very complex game to play. And because of that complexity, computer scientists couldn't build a video game or a machine that could actually play the game Go, because there are just too many moves. You see, a typical game of chess has a finite number of moves that computer programmers can actually program into the game. But Go, on the other hand, they say the best estimate of the number of moves in a game of Go is that a single game has the same number of legal moves as the number of atoms. Listen to this. The number of atoms in the known universe. Not the number of atoms in a glass of water or number of atoms in the ocean or on planet Earth. The number of atoms in the known universe. So because there are so many moves, because it was so complex, they couldn't program a computer to encompass all those moves. You can imagine you'll need computers that don't even exist yet to encompass all those moves. However, about 3 or 4 years ago, some engineers at Google decided to use a different approach. What they did was they created this computer called AlphaGo, and they gave it machine learning algorithms. They taught it how to learn, and they showed it tens of thousands of games of Go being played. And this machine, by observing these games being played, it actually learned the rules of the game. And it taught itself, Priya, I just got a notification that the meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. How will we recover? Do we set up a second meeting?
I would assume the meeting would go on because we have more than 5 participants. Okay,
I'll tell you what, if the meeting does cut off, we'll send a new link to the participants. Just in case, contingency plan.
Okay, sure.
All right, yeah, excellent. Okay, so moving on, where was I? So they showed this machine games of Go being played, and then it learned the rules, and then it began to play against itself. It started to almost challenge itself against the game of Go. So 24/7, it just played and played and played. And what happened was that it became quite proficient at the game. And so they decided to do some human testing. The first set of humans that played against it, it wiped them out. And then they brought in the European champion, it wiped him out. And then they said, well, this guy, Lee Sedol, is untouchable. He is the best known Go player in recorded history. Let's try him out. So it was a highly publicized event. It was a turning point in technology. So all the media was there. Long story short, this guy, Lee Sedol, was wiped out 4 games to 1 by this machine, AlphaGo. And when he was asked in an interview after the game, he said it was eerie, it was weird, strange playing this thing, because it seemed as if it learned my every move and it used those moves against me. So it was as if I was playing against myself. And that in itself was phenomenal. But what this proved was that for the first time, we saw that a computer is able to, A, learn a game, and B, use a level of creativity and intuition to beat a human being at that game. Now, that is phenomenal, because we never thought that computers would be able to be creative, would be able to come up with strategies to beat a human being, but this one did. And that is why scientists are now bravely saying that in the next 10 years, we're going to see more innovation, simply because the innovation of the previous century was done by us. But the innovation of the next decade is going to be done by us, but with artificial intelligence. So we've got help now. We've got a partner in innovation, and that partner works much, much faster than we do. And this is what people refer to as Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution. I like to call it Rise of the Machines. I know it sounds scary, and Priya was right. It is the title actually of a science fiction movie. I don't know if you guys remember the Terminator series. One of them was called Rise of the Machines. So I don't mean this in a scary, horrendous way, like, this dystopian future that was drawn up by the movie Terminator. It's not going to be like that at all. And I'm going to prove that to you. Now, what exactly is this fourth industrial revolution? I'm going to give you a bit of a history lesson here now. So the fourth industrial revolution is obviously the successor of the first, second, and third. First industrial revolution, around about 300 years ago, characterized by mechanization, steam, water power. Second industrial revolution, mass production, assembly lines, electricity. That was around about the early 20th century. Third industrial revolution, around about the 1970s, when computers became cheap enough that we could afford them in our homes and businesses. And then the fourth industrial revolution, characterized by cyber-physical systems, networks, and artificial intelligence. Now, what exactly is a cyber-physical system? We've already discussed AI, right? It's computers that have, that can simulate human intelligence. But what exactly is a cyber-physical system? A cyber-physical system, in a nutshell, is a computer that has sensors that allow it to know what's happening in the world around it and to make decisions based on that knowledge. Let me give you an example of a cyber-physical system. Boom, there we go. You didn't expect this, did you? You didn't expect such a beautiful, beautiful cyber-physical system. This is the Tesla Model S, probably the most beautiful and desirable cyber-physical system. Now, why do I call it a cyber-physical system? This car is a self-driving car, and it has sensors that tell it exactly where it is on the planet and what is happening in its surroundings. It knows, as a self-driving car, if there are vehicles in its vicinity, if there are pedestrians, if there are obstacles. And using this knowledge, it's able to navigate itself along highways. Obviously, all that is powered by artificial intelligence. So if you want to know what Rise of the Machines is going to look like in the real world, there we have it. This is what Rise of the Machines is going to look like. Here's another example of Rise of the Machines. This is a supermarket, as you probably already guessed, with something big missing. And what's missing here is staff. There is no staff in this supermarket. If you look at the front of the supermarket, there's a glaring shortage of cashiers. But that's because there are no cashiers in the store. This is the Amazon Go store, where you walk in, you pick up your goods, and you walk out. And that's charged to your credit card. Again, this entire store is managed by machines. The moment you walk into the store, you scan your phone on the turnstile that you see at the entrance, and immediately it knows who you are. When you pick something off the shelf, it knows what you picked. And if you put that item back onto the shelf, the shop even knows that. So it's really cool. So as you're moving forward with your trolley, you pick an item off the shelf, you put it into your trolley, and immediately on your phone, you see that it's been added there. And if you decide to put it back, it's removed from that list on your phone. And as you walk out, it's charged to your credit card. Now, a lot of people say this won't work in South Africa for a number of reasons, but it is working in many countries, and this is the supermarket of the future. As we saw, most of us are parents, and as we saw when a lockdown took place, education also moved into the digital space. We saw people, schools doing online classes using various platforms like Moodle and Microsoft Teams, etc. And that trend is going to continue, and it's going to accelerate. At the most, we're going to have classes where kids go to school, but they'll be using a lot of technology in their classroom. So everything, literally everything, is being affected by technology. Beg your pardon. Now, the question arises that in view of all this that's taking place around us, and I can go on and on and on talking about how technology is changing our world. I mean, one of my favorite topics, if I had more time, I would have spoken about this, is the Internet of Cows, where cows in the KZN Midlands are connected to the internet. Why and how, we'll speak about that some other time. But just to give you a sense, every single field that you can imagine is being affected by technology. Now, we can have one of two mindsets about this. We can have a mindset that, oh my God, I'm terrified. Technology is going to take everything away from me. It's going to take my livelihood. It's going to take my work. Or we can have the mindset of, herein lies opportunities. As technology advances, it's creating more and more opportunities. And there may be opportunities for myself, for my nonprofit, for my business, in this new technology that's taking place. And wherever we saw people take on that mindset and that mentality, we saw massive success. I mean, think about Facebook and Instagram and all these wonderful social media sites that we use and all the apps that we use. What was the mindset behind it? If you look at the biographies of those, the founders, you'll see that they had this mindset that technology is giving us opportunities. I need to find an opportunity and I need to find it. But then the question is, how do you find opportunities in this technology? And here, my friends, is the secret. Here's the secret sauce. Here is how you can get ready for this technology-driven world for success. These are the 6 steps. So let's take it from the top. Mental elasticity. That's the first thing. If you don't have mental elasticity, everything else falls away. What is mental elasticity? Mental elasticity is the mindset that allows you to embrace change. Change is taking place all around us, and we are living in a time right now where there is unprecedented change. Technology is just changing everything around us, and if we are going to adopt that mentality that this is not for me, I'm going to lock myself out of this change, then you're actually locking yourself out of opportunities. But if you embrace the change, if you take the steps, if you make the effort to learn about technology, to embrace it, to bring it into your life, then you're actually opening up opportunities for yourself. So that's the first thing, mental elasticity. You need that mindset where you embrace change. The next thing is creativity. Now, generally, when we speak about creativity, people think of art, graphics, etc. But creativity is not just that. It is that, but there's a whole lot more. Creativity is about doing things in new and novel ways, going about things in our world, whether it's work related or if it's home related, no matter what, but just doing things differently, finding different ways of doing things. So creativity is going to be it's already a very big and important skill to have, but it's going to be even more important, as you will see in the examples that I show you shortly. Now, somewhat related to creativity is problem solving. Now, problem solving requires a lot of creativity. Yes, it requires logic, it requires logical thinking, but it also requires creativity, because when we are faced with a problem, whether it's problems again at work or at home, or problems in our NGOs, or problems related to fundraising, we need to solve those problems. And if you are a living, breathing human being, then you are actually solving problems every day. You are solving problems every hour of every day. All the time, we are faced with new problems and new challenges, and we are solving them. So problem solving is going to be a big skill. And it's the best way to find opportunities, because if you find a problem that people are having and you solve that problem and you find a way to monetize on that, then you've got yourself a business. You've got yourself a potentially lucrative business or an NGO. Take Facebook or Instagram, for example. How did those come about? Have you ever wondered? The answer is very simple. These founders saw a problem, they identified a problem that they were facing, and it just turned out that quite a few other people were facing the same problems, and they solved it, and they found a way to make money out of that solution of theirs. Which brings us to the next part, people skills. Now, it's remarkable, despite being human beings ourselves, how little we know about other people. We just don't take the time to observe what is going on in the world around us. What are the challenges people are facing around the world? Well, what we're going to need is people skills to help us identify what is needed by people. And I think in the future, this is what's going to happen. And here's the irony. In this technology-driven world that we are in, people are going to desire more of a human interaction. They're going to desire more of that human touch than ever before, because people don't want just technology. They don't want to be surrounded by technology and machines. They want that warm touch of a human being. Let me give you an example. When you go to a doctor, although in the future the doctors and surgeons will be robots, but really, do you want to see a robot there? Do you want to speak to a robot, or do you want to see a human being? You want to sit down with your doctor, have a smile, have a short conversation, a few pleasantries, and then ask that person, sort of relate what your issues are, and ask that person what seems to be the issue with you, why you're having these symptoms, etc. So that level of human interaction will always be there, and it will in fact be more so in the future. So from people skills, we go on to critical thinking. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is the ability to see what's wrong with the world around us. What's wrong with something around us? Now, you guys being representing NGOs and raising funds for specific causes, you are already on your way there, because you've identified a problem that people are having, and you are actively trying to solve that problem. Critical thinking. Now, this applies in pretty much every aspect of life. Challenging the status quo. This is how things have always been done in my business. That doesn't carry weight anymore. What carries weight is, what's the new way of doing it? Is there a better way of doing it? Is there a more efficient way of doing it? That's critical thinking. When you think about things completely differently to other people, you dare to challenge the status quo. And obviously, technology skills. The last one is technology skills, which in a technology-driven age is something we will all need, no matter what field you are in. I mean, pretty much, as I say, every field you can imagine is being affected and disrupted by technology. And if we are not playing in that space, then we are going to be removed from that space. It's something I always say when I speak to teachers, because teachers have this fear that technology is going to replace them. And my single bit of advice to them is this, that technology will never replace teachers, but teachers who know technology will replace teachers who don't. So you're probably going to lose your job to a teacher that knows technology. You're not going to lose your job to technology. So that's the 6 skills that we're going to need to take charge of things in the future. Now, my personal vision is that schools need to bring these in and teach these skills to our kids, because that's the way they're going to be effective. If we want them to be successful in the future, if we want them to be the next successful tech entrepreneurs, then these are the skills that they are going to need. Now, I'm not saying we should remove the traditional subjects and replace them with these skills. I'm not saying anything as radical as that. What I'm saying is that the traditional subjects need to be taught within the context of these 6 skills. Take maths, for example. I used to be a maths teacher. Maths teaches mental elasticity, because you learn something in a certain grade, and few years down the line, you're learning a different way of doing it. You're learning new theorems. You're learning new ideas all the time. So it strengthens your mind. It allows your mind to accept. It prepares your mind to accept a change. Maths also teaches creativity. Most of us don't realize that there is a lot of creativity in maths, specifically where the problem solving is involved. So we've got creativity and problem solving all encompassed into maths. You're given a problem in class and you need to solve that problem, whether it's an algebra problem or a trig or a geometry problem. You got to look at it and you got to be creative in the way that you apply the theorems and solve that problem. And then obviously there's critical thinking. Maths also strengthens critical thinking. So that's just maths. Think about languages and science and the natural sciences and social sciences. We can bring all of these 6 skills into these subjects, but we need to teach those subjects within the context of these 6 skills. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to give you a few case studies of brilliant fundraising schemes where they used these 6 skills. You can clearly see people are using these 6 skills. Let's look at the first one. What are you seeing here? You're seeing 2 people sitting on a bench and smiling. But there's more to it than just that. You see, that bench is no ordinary bench. That bench has Wi-Fi built in, and you can also charge your phone on it. And more important than that, that bench has been installed by the Cancer Research Foundation in the UK, all around London. I think they're aiming to install about 100 of those. So you are walking through the streets, you've been doing your work, you've been doing your shopping, and then you need a place to rest. You come there, you can take a rest, but not just that, you can use the Wi-Fi, you can charge your phone. And on the bench, there is a place where you can make a £2 donation. All you have to do is tap your debit card and automatically a £2 donation is made. So the people that install this bench, the Cancer Research UK, they're saying to the public that here's some benches for you to use. You're welcome to use it. Take a seat, have a rest, charge your phone, use the Wi-Fi. But hey, before you leave, would you mind giving us a £2 donation? We'd really appreciate that. So all you do is take out your card, tap it, and you move on. You don't even have to put in the number. It's no touch. You don't ever have to touch that console. You just tap your card and you move on. The amount of £2 is preset. Obviously, if you want to make a bigger donation, then you have to tap it a few times. But by default, it just does a £2 donation. And over and above all that, these benches also have air quality monitors. And what it does, it takes a reading of the air quality in its surroundings, wherever it's located, and it sends that to a central server so that the London municipality can see what the air quality is like around the city, which is phenomenal. So this is an immensely creative way of raising funds. And you can see that there's so many of the skills that I spoke about earlier being involved. There's mental elasticity. I mean, these people were willing to get out of that mindset of just simply asking for donations. Here they put out something and then they ask for donations. So this is a completely different way of asking for donations. And you have to admit, it's a very creative thing to do. And not just that, but they solve the problem of fundraising, people skills. I mean, you can clearly see people skills at play here. They understood and they recognized what people need around the city. They need a place to rest. They need a place to charge their phones, and usually they need Wi-Fi. And you can also see critical thinking and technology here. So this solution essentially encompasses all 6 skills. Phenomenal, isn't it? Here's my favorite example of fundraising. This is a campaign that was done by the Blue Cross, again in London, where instead of sending people out with tins to collect money, to ask people for money, what they did was they put out people with dogs, and they made the dogs wear these vests. As you can see, this dog in the picture is wearing the vest, and attached to that vest is a little payment device. It's very similar to the payment device that you'd see at a petrol station, where you simply just tap and it takes a donation. So these people walk around with these dogs, and they call it pay to pet. So basically, you can go and you can play with the dog, you can pat it, and who wouldn't be, right? I'm a dog lover myself. I've got a dog, a German Shepherd called Bobo, and I'm a real dog lover. And if I see these dogs, I would love to go and play with them, give it a stroke on his head, play with it, and also make a donation. Now, again, you can see the 6 skills at play here, right? There's a hell of a lot of creativity here. There's technology at play. There's people skills. You know how they're using people skills here? You can see they got people skills because they're playing to our emotions. They know what we love. They know what's our soft spot. They know that we love doggos. They know that we're going to stop to play with those doggos, and they are utilizing that. Look, it's not manipulation. They're not making it mandatory for somebody to make a donation. It's purely voluntary, so you can stop, play with the dog, and move on without making a donation. That's fine. But if you feel like making a donation, you simply tap your card, and off goes a £2. And who can't afford £2? It's for a great cause. So there's no forms to fill in. There's no PIN numbers to put in. There's no complex documentation to put in. Nothing of the sort. It's just tap your card and play with the doggo and move on. Here's another example. Extremely creative example. The picture is not very clear, but this is a picture of Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, doing the Ice Bucket Challenge. You remember the Ice Bucket Challenge of a few years ago? That went viral. I mean, in total, there were 17 million videos of people doing the Ice Bucket Challenge, including celebrities like Lady Gaga, Jimmy Fallon, Bill Gates, Oprah Winfrey, obviously our friend Robert Downey Jr., LeBron James, Tom Cruise. All of these people did the Ice Bucket Challenge. But have you ever wondered how this started off? This campaign was started by the ALS Foundation. Now, the ALS is a medical condition that is incurable, that certain people suffer from. Now, for the life of me, I can't pronounce what it actually means, but please look it up. So it started off with 3 young people who are actually suffering with ALS. They made a video of themselves dunking ice water on themselves, and they put this out and they challenged others to do the same. And within a few months, this went completely viral, and 17 million videos. These videos reached 500 million people, and $50 million in donations were received just through this one campaign. Think about it, $50 million US. That is a lot of money. But again, you can see it was very creative. It leveraged technology. This would not have been possible without technology. It had the fun factor, so you can see there was the people skill. The people like to have fun. People like to enjoy themselves. So they used this to raise funds, and it was a massive success. The only downside to this was that it was a one-hit wonder. All right, it's a hit and miss. It could happen or it could not happen. Now, the next example is one that I think is a lot more inspirational because it's not a one-hit wonder. It's something that took time to grow, and that's this one. Now, this is a poster for the Movember movement. You know, the movement where men are encouraged to grow their mustaches during the month of November and make a donation to this organization. Now, this wasn't an instant hit. This one started around about 2003, and they had only about 30 to 38 people on board in the first year. So the founders, they went out and they spoke to people. There were, I think, a couple of Australian youngsters, and they spoke to people, and they got only 30 people on board. By the second year, they managed to get 480 people on board, and they raised $40,000. By 2010, they had more than 1 million participants, and by that time, they had raised $170 million. Isn't that phenomenal? Just for something as simple as asking men to grow their mustache, to help other men with whatever sicknesses and diseases men have. So it basically, they put their donation towards men's health issues. By 2020, the Movember movement has 5.5 million participants and has raised 700 million US dollars. Almost, they're creeping close to $1 billion US dollars in fundraising. Now, friends, you can see how the founders use these 6 skills and they use technology. None of this would have been possible without modern technology. None of this would have been possible without social media. Think 25 years ago, how would they have done this? Go to radio stations, TV stations? That would have flopped. It would have been a failure before it even started. But thanks to the power of social media, they achieved this and they raised 700 million US dollars. Now, to do this, the question is, can you do this in your organization? Can you do something like this? Can you launch a campaign like this? The answer is yes, but you're going to need some very, very fancy equipment. You're going to need some extremely high-tech equipment, and I'm not sure where you're going to get hold of that equipment. You want to see what equipment that is? There it is. This is the equipment you're going to need. A cell phone. Now, obviously, I'm just being cynical here. Everybody has a cell phone. You've got a cell phone in front of you, perhaps 2 cell phones. All you need to launch a campaign that could be the next viral campaign is your cell phone. It's got the internet built in, it's got the camera built in, it's got the social media apps built in. What more do you need? Do a video, go onto social media, post that video, and who knows what's going to happen next. So the power is in your hands. But what you need to do is to follow these 5 steps. Number 1, be creative in what you do. Think about it. Take a step back. Challenge the status quo. Don't look at what has been done in the past. Think, how can we do things differently? Second, tell a story. People love stories. People identify with stories. Why do you think novels and movies are so successful? Simple, because they tell a story. People get absorbed in stories. Now let me ask you a question. Do you tell the story about your NGO, about your cause? Of course, it means a lot to you, otherwise you wouldn't have been doing it. But what does it mean to the next person? The only way they'll know what it means to them is if you tell them the story. If you tell the story about yourself, your NGO, the people that you are helping, only then will people learn to identify with you. Only then will they empathize and understand your challenge. Third, give and take. Don't just ask for donations. Give something and ask for something. I mean, look at the Pay for a Pat campaign. Rather than just sending people out on the streets with a little tin and asking people to make a donation, they're giving something, which is the opportunity to play with the doggo, and then they're asking for something. It's the same with the benches. They're giving something, which is the opportunity to sit, have a rest, use the Wi-Fi, charge your phone. But if you don't mind, please give us a £2 donation. So give and take. Next, ask. You know, the biggest mistake that fundraisers make is that they don't ask. And this is one of the things that I find at a lot of fundraising dinners. I mean, they'll do everything but ask for funds, which is pretty weird, isn't it? So don't hesitate to ask. After you've done all of those things, ask for what you want, and people will give. If you don't ask, you will never get. And finally, don't forget, in all of this, have fun. Make sure you are having fun. And that takes us to the top. Be creative. You know, creativity is fun. It's something that is enjoyable. And if you are having fun, the people in your organization will have fun. And the people you are targeting with your campaign will also have fun. It's contagious. And if everybody is having fun, it's easier to relate. And with those few words, I will conclude. And I conclude with this. You have the power of technology in your hands. Use it. Use it to put your message out, to draw attention to your cause, to raise funds for your cause. Be creative about it. Tell a story. Give something and then take. And don't hesitate to ask. And get started immediately. Again, with those few words, I will conclude. And if you need to get in touch with me, here's how. These are my social media handles. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. Ask me questions. If you need me to speak at your organizations, I will be more than happy to. I have a soft spot for NGOs, for non-profits, for people trying to raise funds for a good cause. So if you've got a good cause and you want me to speak to people, I will be more than happy. Just get in touch and we'll set something. With those few words, I thank you very, very much.